Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Beyond the Wire podcast. I am your host, Tim Keller. Along with me, as always, is Mr. Matt Disher. And this week we have a guest, Mr. Brian Link. He is a former military recruiter. He's now in the military talent acquisition business as a professional, still serving in the U.S. Army. So thank you very much for joining us today, Brian. How are you?
I'm doing great. Just glad to be here with you guys.
Yeah, we were talking a little bit before we went live. You just got back from deployment, so you were still very active in the military role. So we look forward to talking a little bit about that. But as we always do, we like to touch on a little bit of news, some of it fun, some of it a little heavy. So we're going to start today with a little bit of that heavy news. The Navy has lost 4 sailors now in the span of a 20-day period to the COVID-19 virus. The last one was from the Assault Craft Unit 4 down there in Virginia. So, obviously we've now been a year plus into the COVID pandemic. I know personally around here that individuals are starting to get a little lax with the masks, a little lax with the personal space. The shots are out there. The warm weather's coming, so hopefully that knocks numbers down as well. But we're seeing the decline, so we're on the right track. People just need to try to keep doing the right thing for a few more months. Let's get this thing over with and get back to what used to be normal.
I saw a story.
I will say. Oh, go ahead.
Okay.
No, I was going to say I saw a story that was about some of the aircraft carriers or some of the ships in the Navy that have 100% vaccination rate.
They
now
started
they're going to start relaxing.
Yep.
Yeah. Which is good news. The big thing that we've been seeing all along is there's a certain age group and certain health characteristics that are most at risk, and those groups are now being vaccinated. So we should see those numbers start to significantly drop in terms of death rates or mortality. Yeah. Sorry, Brian, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, the weird thing is, last month whenever I went to drill with the National Guard, they said they had 600 vaccinations available in the state, and hardly anybody has signed up to say they wanted them. And so,
really?
I thought it was kind of interesting. So I definitely said, yeah, I'll take one for 2 reasons. One, just I think it's better just to have it than not have it. And then secondly, hey, if something bad happens out of it, the military's responsible for it afterwards, right? So,
right. I think that's one of the big pieces of this is like, this is the first type of, and I am not a scientist, and I don't remember they said like it's an RNA something vaccine. It's the first type of vaccine of its kind or something like that. So I think, naturally and fairly, there are people who are skeptical of, it's not the first time that there's ever been some sort of medicine that was released that is potentially harmful. And I'm not saying this is potentially harmful. I'm just saying that people don't know. The medical community is saying it's safe. But, I will tell you this, that when you look at medication, pharmaceutical commercials where it's like, this may cause diarrhea, death, you're going to lose your ears.
Spotting of the skin, bruising.
Right. I haven't seen any commercials for the vaccine yet because it's I don't think it's a consumer brand, but that's that's always concerning to me. Like, I'll deal with my heartburn. I'll go ahead and I'll be okay with my heartburn instead of taking this medication that might cause my feet to fall off.
Yeah. If you, the medical commercials where they speed up that list at the end of the commercial may cause and and you're like, whoa, let's slow that down. I want to hear all that.
Slow down, Micro Machine guy.
Yeah. Exploding anus. Like, oh, that's not good. I don't need that.
You know what? I think I'm going to deal with my heartburn or my muscle twitches or whatever's happening.
Okay. We'll solve your heartburn, but we'll give you irritable bowel syndrome in the process.
Yes.
Right. You're going to lose 15 years of your life.
I do know the 2 current vaccines out there, the Pfizer and the Moderna, they are the first of its kind type vaccine. I want to say there was I'm probably wrong. Johnson & Johnson, maybe some other major medical company. They are putting out a more traditional vaccine. It's a one-shot thing.
So. Yeah. I think it is Johnson & Johnson. I think I saw that yesterday.
Yeah.
I'm not, again, Matt's closer to a scientist than I am. But yeah, I was reading about these types of vaccines and that these 2 that first came out, were something new. It was something we hadn't seen before. So
I'm not a scientist. I just play one on TV.
yeah, he's in his lab right now. He's got his coat on. That's
why it's yellow in here. It's the typical color for a medical lab, of course.
Well, anybody watching, Matt,
was just the fact we had 600 available. We got 10,000 soldiers and airmen within my state, and they weren't taken up yet out of 10,000. So that ratio there, I really thought would be a lot higher. You know, and I think it just kind of goes over to overarching, people's mentality sometimes in certain parts of the country. So, where I'm more Midwest, if it had been the East Coast, I think they would have been taken up in a heartbeat.
Right. I was going to say, there's a waiting list out here to get your vaccine in Pennsylvania. So, Matt, you're actually anybody that's watching Matt's in his son's room again this week. So he's got that yellow backdrop, but he does have that new office. It's being built right now. It's very exciting. Looks great, Matt. Can't wait to see you there.
Yeah, I really wanted to have a better story. Like when somebody shows up to work and they have like a cut on their face or a black eye, or like when one of my son's friends show up to our house and somebody looks like they, took a beating. I'm always like, what happened? Like, I fell off my bike. I'm like, listen, stop telling people that and tell them that you got in a fight with 16 ninjas and you should see those guys. I wish I had a story like that, but I'm literally sitting in a room. It's a bedroom painted orange. There are stoplights on the walls, and there's one of those little graphics that you glue onto the wall over here. It says, boy, a noise with dirt on it. And
that's a true description.
Right. It's supposed to be like a definition. So it's like boy, and there's a little N, like it's a noun.
Yeah.
Number one, a noise with dirt on it. But then I have Nerf guns in here. I have all kinds of Nerf guns in here.
Oh, nice.
Like off-road trucks. I've got, there's like a pile of toys, like laser tag. Yeah. So, beanbag chair, TV, PlayStation. I've got it all in here. World globe. There's a little alligator head right here, and then of course SpongeBob's back here too.
You gotta have SpongeBob.
But right in front of me, I have this amazing view of the woods, which is something that I don't have in my actual office downstairs. So so we're building. We had shelves built in. My wife is decorated. It's going to take a little bit of time. I'm thinking by next week I'll probably be back in that office, and I'll be able to show it off. It came together quite well. The contractor that we hired, I am pleasantly pleased. I'm not surprised. He does good work, but we were having trouble finding a contractor. Maybe that's par for the course these days. Couldn't find a reputable contractor. Couldn't find somebody who was good. This guy came in and just blew us away. So now he's going to do our floors, and we're going to have him do our deck too. So maybe when it gets warm out, I'll do one of these from the deck.
There you go. That'll be nice.
It's hard to find a good contractor, man. That's so hard.
Yeah. And once you find one you can count on, you just stick with you just book them. Just book them back to back so you don't lose them. Yeah.
Well, with the pandemic, so many people being at home, working from home, having to spend extended time at the home, they're looking around like, man, I'd really like to, take this wall out, or, fix up the office, or add a bathroom, or, get rid of these countertops in the kitchen. And so they're like, hey, let's bring a contractor in here, get this stuff done. So all these contractors are flush with work right now.
Yeah.
We just brought it up 6 minutes ago. Yahoo Finance released the notice: Johnson & Johnson's one-shot COVID-19 vaccine has been deemed effective and safe by the FDA.
There we go.
It just kind of lined up for us there.
Yeah, I've got one of the Alexa, what's it called, the Alexa show or whatever, the Echo show in my kitchen, and it has like the screen on it, and you can talk to it.
Yes.
And it has the story scrolling across. That's where I saw it. It has random news. So I'll be walking by to get a cup of coffee, and I'll see some news story. Tiger Woods, that's another one. Tiger Woods crashed his car. Like, hadn't heard about that because I don't watch the news. I don't turn on the TV. I don't go on Fox News or CNN. So I have to rely on just kind of picking up bits and pieces through conversation.
You mean the American public, antagonists?
I don't need them to tell. I don't need those organizations to tell me how to feel. I feel certain ways about things on my own.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I only go to reputable places that I know what I'm getting, like the Onion, Duffel Blog, things like that. At least I know what I'm getting there.
Yeah. Well, Duffel Blog. What was the story that we were talking about?
Oh, hey, rank is just a number. It says the E8 dating the E2. So.
yeah. Rank. When you
just a number.
if you just boil it down to its basis, yes, rank is just a number, but there's supposed to be certain guidelines and rules that try to keep certain ranks away from each other in personal settings and
Right.
dating outside of those. Yeah,
that's the old military. This is the new military now. Come on, to new Army, new Marine Corps.
Yeah. As a Lance Corporal, I would have walked up. Hey, Colonel, can I call you Bob? Is it Bob? Can I call you Bob?
Yeah.
Listen, pal.
Yeah. Listen here, buddy.
Yeah.
I made
buddy, slap him on the back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. I made the mistake one time of I think I was a PFC, and I was in some sort of combat training on Camp Pendleton, perhaps, and there was a corporal. So I'm an E2, he's an E4. This dude was, you could tell he's been around a while because his camis were all like whitewashed. Like the dude has been wearing the same set of camouflage for 100 years. So he asked me something, and my first response, I didn't get the whole response out of my mouth, but I just said, yeah. I didn't mean to say yeah, but in the Marine Corps, that's a huge no-no. How dare you say yeah to me? So I found myself doing push-ups in the tree line. It was the last time I actually got hazed. It's not hazing, I guess, but they're not allowed to do that technically. This dude sent me to the tree line, and I had to do push-ups for like a half an hour.
Well, you were being physically taught how to properly address someone by their rank.
Right. Diplomatic. It's aggressive diplomacy.
Yes, aggressive diplomacy. I like that. I like that a lot.
That said, even today, when I'm addressing, an executive leader or something like that, I'm still like, do I say yes? Or do I say yeah to this guy? Or can I say yeah to the CEO? Or am I like, yes, CEO? That is correct. Here I am almost 40 years old, and I've still got that PFC stuck in me. That's like, hey, be careful.
I have almost a reverse story of that. I had a sergeant who, on the weekends, when we're in civies, if we are off base, he preferred to be addressed by his first name. He wanted to keep some sort of, personal life alive in him. Yeah. So the first weekend I was around him off base, I addressed him as Sergeant so-and-so, and he looked at me. My name's Ryan. He says, when we're off base and we're wearing these clothes, you can call me Ryan. I don't want to hear that sergeant stuff. He's like, I want to be a human still. Okay. Half hour later goes by. We were at a buddy's apartment complex. We were swimming around in the pool up in Anaheim, and I called him Sergeant again. And he came over and held me under the water for about 3 seconds, pulled me back up and said, what's my name? I said, Ryan. He goes, thank you. Then, I never called him Sergeant again. Off base. On base, kept it professional, kept him calling Sergeant. So,
meanwhile, if you've got Navy Federal or I think it's Navy Federal. I have a bank account with Navy Federal. Yeah. So when I called them for any reason, I'm still Sergeant Disher.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I am still Sergeant. Yeah. I'm like, listen, guys, I've been out for like 48 years. I was in the military back right after World War II.
Do you know what an actual sergeant would do to me?
Right. Now, I mean, I could probably still fit in my uniform, probably. But if we have to go for a PT run and I have to prove that I could do 3 miles, I can't do it. I'm a half a mile in, I'm done. I'm old.
Yeah. My lungs are going to explode. Another news article up here on military.com, and Matt, you have one that kind of piggybacks on this, is the new Marine Corps infantry training course aims to make deadlier, more independent grunts. The deadlier part I agree with, but the more independent, I'm kind of scared of independent PFCs. No telling what they might do. But the Marine Corps School of Infantry has launched a new course aimed at training young grunts to be riflemen, machine gunners, anti-tank gunners in an effort to send more capable infantrymen to the fleet. The current infantry training course is a 14-week course. The new course will add another 5 weeks onto that. So you're looking at, the 12 weeks of boot camp plus a 19-week infantry course now. So I'm assuming that some of these guys, and I know how some military training is, it's, hey, we're going to give you the basics here. You're going to get a nice coating of everything, but you're really not going to know much of anything. And we're going to send you to the fleet, and they're going to be like, you don't know squat, bub. So it appears this new course, and just from what I've read, it seems like maybe some special forces training has kind of bled into this a little bit. Hey, these guys are coming out of these special forces trainings, just ready to go, ready to hop in with a unit and go be as tactical as possible. So if they can pull some of those best practices from SF and put them into this, I'm all for it.
Well, think about this. If you take your 19, 20, 21-year-old who has not had a leadership opportunity quite yet, and this is, and I'm talking about most of the people who are in those, NCO and above and below ranks in the Marine Corps, they become more independent thinkers. That's the independence piece. I think it's not necessarily they're going to be like listen, I'm my own PFC. I don't need you to tell me how to do. but it is making them into more independent thinkers, more mature thinkers, probably. And if you go back in time, for example, like when I was in, I did raids with Fox Company 2-1, which we called the company called itself like a raider company, and raiders were historically special operations from World War II, and then thereafter, like in 2004, I think the Marine Corps adopted a special operations command element, which then became the raiders again, and which is now formed into MARSOC. And I might be oversimplifying this explanation, but the raiders were that the unit that I was involved with doing that similar job. One of the reasons why the Marine Corps was against creating its own special operations command was that I think the commandant or the leadership at the time was like, the Marine Corps is a special operations capable element by itself. But if you look at a true special operations community or true special operations element, these are very mature, leadership developed men and women. These are people that have, if you ever ran into these guys, like I did some operations, I did some work with the SEAL teams and with Marine Recon when I was just a young buck, when I was 19, 20 years old. And I would run into a Navy SEAL who was just a couple years older than me. And he seemed like he was 15 or 20 years more mature than I was based on experience, et cetera. And so I think that that's probably the aim here is take these kids, stop making them order followers, make them order givers, make them people that can make decisions on their own, give them the responsibility to make solid decisions. And they probably become more effective leaders, more effective decision makers in combat. And I'll take you back another few years, something I learned in anti-armor school when we were identifying different enemy armored vehicles. One of the lessons that I learned was like the Soviet bloc or communist bloc method of combat always was that there was one leader, and if you kill that leader, everybody else just stops and nobody knows what to do because there is no hierarchy of leadership. So the guy 2 ranks below doesn't know the job of the guy 2 ranks ahead of him. So what the Afghans would do when the Soviets were invading Afghanistan back in the day was they took a measurement of the command vehicle's antennas and they would put tripwires over the road at that level so that all the vehicles could pass through, and then the command vehicle would come through with its 18-foot antenna, trip the tripwire, kill the commander. Everybody would just sit there while they dropped mortars and RPGs because nobody was in a position to make a decision, which is far and away different from what I learned in the Marine Corps, which is if I'm a E3, I better know my E4 and E5's job. So if those guys get taken out, I have to do their job. We all know where we're supposed to go. Commander's intent. Again, we've talked about that before, getting the job done, et cetera. So I'm betting if I had to put my own spin on it, that's what we're doing here.
Yeah.
I think you're right.
Go ahead, Brian.
I think they're taking it a step further because over the past 20 years, we probably realized that we were okay at doing that, but I think they realized we could do a lot better moving forward, based upon previous experience, where there's a lot of guys that are lower rank that end up taking command whenever they're out on patrols, things of that nature. IEDs get exploded, and then the next thing you know, you got an E4 leading the team. Right. That's, I think, what they're trying to do is make a lot more independent leaders in that aspect, be able to make decisions and just go forth with it. Where we thought we were good at it before, there's probably a lot of room for improvement, which is probably why they're doing this right here.
Right. And this is a business lesson too. Companies do this too. Companies have young professional leadership courses, and companies that I've worked for had these, right out of college, effective leadership programs, management training programs. It's the same thing. You're creating leaders, you're creating decision makers and people that will put their ideas on the table and execute from day one. You're putting those people into the business. So it's the same thing. It applies to infantry operations too. The best laid plan goes out the window when the first bullets start flying. You can have all the plans in the world and then somebody starts shooting, and now you have to have executors on the ground who can get the job done.
A lot of those corporate leadership courses also have ties back to special forces training, where the special forces have really honed in and developed and polished up a way to train individuals to be free thinkers, fast thinkers, and to lead at a moment's notice. And the corporate sector has pulled a lot of that. This pilot is going to go off. It's going to be an instructor with a 14-man squad. The first 9 weeks of the course is going to be training and be taught individual skills and with weapons, land navigation, radio communications, and then the remainder of the course, these 14 Marines are then going to be put to tests. Essentially, they're going to be put out there. Hey, let's go do this land nav. We're each going to rotate, taking the lead. We're going to go through. We're going to do some student-led force-on-force actions. So they're going to conduct operations where they're going to, I'm assuming, cycle through as leaders. And hey, we taught you these things. We showed you these. We read this stuff. We were in the classroom and talked about this stuff. Now it's time to go do it. So yeah, they're going to be taught how to be leaders and to free think and operate on their own.
That's really awesome, because then most of the time when you think about it, when you do something for the first time, you don't feel like you do it very well. You're not very confident in the decisions you make. But when you have a reference point to go back to and know that you've already done this, you've already been out there, you've done something similar, it makes going forward and more confident in your decisions you make moving forward, more confident in making adjustments as you move forward if you happen to run into a situation like that again. And so I think that's kind of what this is doing, giving them a reference point of, hey, you've already done this. You can do this. You can.
And it allows them to get that flub out of the way. I probably made a mildly incorrect decision here, and this is what happened because of it. Let's try not to make that same mistake again.
Right.
And they can lean on that. They can go back. Hey, this is where I went wrong the first time. I know this now, and now I can be better.
So the Marine Corps is getting new optics. They're getting new training. They're getting suppressors on their weapons. If I were a fortune teller, I'd say we are gearing up for war. No, I'm kidding. We're always gearing up for war. Yeah. I mean, we're always preparing for war.
There's an industrial complex there.
Right. I think, what we found in Afghanistan and Iraq, or particularly Afghanistan after the invasion of Afghanistan in 2003, was that we were largely unprepared for the battle we were going to fight in terms of IEDs, roadside bombs, driving around in soft skin Hummers and things like that. And it took us a few years to get caught up to that. So I think this is the military trying to get ahead of, if we have to engage an enemy, why didn't we have suppressors a long time ago? That would have been great. I don't want them to know where I am.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Absolutely. So Brian, let's talk a little bit about you. You are still currently involved with the United States Army, correct?
Yeah. So I work right now still within the National Guard. I still do the reserve status thing, 1 week in a month, 2 weeks a year. But at the same time, I came out of recruiting command, and it was really nice kind of going back into a line unit, coming out of recruiting command. It's kind of just a refreshing aspect. I went into a brigade headquarters and went into a liaison role, which is kind of really different, because then not only do if we deploy, work between, say, a brigade and division, or the brigade and battalions as a liaison in a DISCA type role, then I actually go out and work with, say, the local county, which I did for COVID response. I went out and was on orders for COVID and social unrest, and I worked with the city and the county both, which are two different emergency management centers, but I worked between both of them during that time, and got to work with a lot of different civilian elements and just coordinate our response between the Guard and them within the metropolitan area that I'm in.
Awesome. And you spent a lot of time with the recruiting command in the Army.
Yeah, I did. It was 11 and a half years. So from 2005 through 2016, So I did multiple roles, from recruiting on the street, working at MEPS, was a senior MEPS guidance counselor, went back out to the street, worked within the university system, worked in ROTCs as an MS1 instructor, ran the labs for ROTC in a couple different schools. So yeah, I spent a lot of time.
Awesome. And you've transitioned as a professional into recruiting as well now.
Mm-hmm.
Talent acquisition.
So I left in 2016 the AGR system, the Active Guard Reserve, the National Guard, and went into a company that was a Fortune 1000 company at the time, and they were just setting up their recruiting. They'd never had recruiters there before, and really kind of went into a place where I kind of helped just build out their recruiting program. There was me and two other recruiters set up between the three divisions, and we kind of helped build that out to where now they were, when I left, about 10 different recruiters they had there across the United States and Canada. So, and they grew from a Fortune 1000 with roughly 350 locations to over 600 locations in a Fortune 500 company by the time I ended up leaving.
Oh, wow.
That was a lot of growth.
Yeah, that's some really substantial growth, actually. You said you were just currently on a deployment. You want to talk about that a little bit? You got called back, and where were we at?
So actually, I went down to the border. I was on border security, working with. We worked with Border Patrol because the Border Patrol is actually down personnel, and they had a Title 10 mission down there, and we went in and relieved the active duty element that was backfilling the Border Patrol, and we sent National Guard down there. It was the first time the National Guard's actually been fully in charge of all the border, from Brownsville all the way to San Diego. And so we were actually in charge of all of the operation for the National Guard across the entire border, partnering with the Border Patrol. And it's everything from, troops being out on, different sites to actually put eyes on the border and view people coming across, to going out cleaning up brush, things like that. So multiple elements, multiple battalions underneath the brigade. And I was down there kind of helping two of the battalions come online and kind of help their S1 section get up and rolling like they need to be, and kind of help out with some leadership and things of that nature. So, and they were about 3 hours apart from each other. So twice a week I was driving 3 hours one way and meeting with one battalion, spending the whole day there, and then driving 3 hours back. So yeah, it was kind of interesting.
You mentioned when you got down there, you had some, new officers that, as anybody that served knows, you get that new officer and they want to just get in there. They want to get dirty. They want to get their hands on everything. Mm-hmm. And, for relating to your people, getting your people's respect, that is a good thing. But also, if you're a new lieutenant and you're put in this situation where you don't really have time to maybe get dirty and you need to be an actual leader, sometimes getting that close to the operation probably isn't the best thing. You need to take a step back, and that way you can see the whole picture. And it seems like that's some of the part you were doing down there is trying to instruct those people.
The weird thing is, so I got put on a TAC team, and that's where I went out and to help these battalions come online. And I wasn't given any instruction on what to do other than help them get online. That was it. That was the broadness of it. Yeah. And one of the things I learned by just going to meeting with them a couple of times is that, the lieutenants were so involved that they really hadn't tasked out their troops they had underneath them to do the work. And so their troops were doing much work. They had a lot of time off, but then the lieutenant had all this work they had dumped on themselves and doing 18-hour days. And from talking with them, one person I really feel like was over controlling in the aspect that they wanted to know how to do everything before they tasked anybody to do something with it, because they wanted to have all the answers. And I had to have multiple conversations with him, explaining kind of his role as a lieutenant to kind of oversee the operation, that he can't manage the operation if he's involved in it. So he can't improve processes. He can't have time to go to the meetings he needs to and still get work done. I said, that's why you're sleeping 4 hours a night, man, and working 20 hours a day. That's why you seem so busy. But it's like, you've got these people. And so I kind of helped him work through some of the elements of how to task out his workload, how to utilize his NCO he had more, because I didn't really feel like he was utilizing him a whole lot. And really kind of, that was a work in progress. I had to build a relationship with him. I had to kind of put on that recruiter hat a little bit and learn how to see it from his perspective, how to build a relationship to him, find out what's motivating him, so I can show him how putting together my plan would help him get to the result that he was wanting. And then the other battalion had almost the opposite, where she was doing all the work, but it wasn't because she was trying to be so in control. She just didn't know how to task it out. And I don't think she really could find her voice. And so I had to help her find her voice and be a little more commanding and kind of bring her from a different side. And so while I'm trying to bring them both to the middle, I'm bringing them from two different perspectives to the middle. Mm-hmm. And what I did is I brought in one of Jocko's books, the Extreme Ownership book, and not so much to make them more involved in what's going on, but to see that by taking a step back, it gives them ownership over what they were doing and be able to make better tactical decisions within that S1 section and moving forward, so they could actually see how to improve the processes they need to improve, instead of being frustrated by being caught up in the middle of the process. And so that was actually got to the place where it was working really well. We went over a chapter a week. I made sure we were all in the same call. That way they could really kind of bounce off each other with their experiences from two different perspectives in two different areas. And it worked out great. They were actually performing really well by the time I ended up leaving down there.
Awesome. That's fantastic. And that's the first time the National Guard's been down there with full controls from Texas to San
Full
Diego.
control. Yeah, when we got there, the 101 was down there running part of the border, and then you had some Title 32 state assets running other parts of the border, say with Texas. But this is the first time it was completely a Title 10 active duty element across the entire border with the National Guard actually running it. So we were actually in charge of some National Guard assets, but also in charge of some active duty elements there as company level elements underneath National Guard battalions. So it was kind of a different and a very interesting way it was set up. But at the same time, the mobile maneuver enhancement brigades are only in the National Guard, and there's 5 of them. And we just had to have one where I'm at. That's what I'm a part of, is a maneuver enhancement brigade, and they actually put us down there to actually run that. And so it was going really, really well, actually. So
that's fantastic.
I think it just goes to show that, you know, we can come in and really handle a lot of different elements too as a National Guard, and bring different experiences in.
Yeah, absolutely. So before you became a recruiter for the Army, what was your actual MOS?
I had 2. I started off as fire director control for the artillery. So definitely loved doing it. It was fun. And then the Army said, hey, we got too many artillery. We need some MPs. And I got converted to be a military policeman. And I got sent to Fort Lewis for 18 months as a military policeman on post, and really worked the road as an MP from 2003 to 2005. And in 2005, when I came back, I went right into recruiting command. I decided, hey, I was making really good money as an E4 compared to what I was doing on the civilian side before I deployed. And why not stay and see if I can make it go before a while.
Glad it worked out.
It took me 11 years before I got burnt out.
Yeah. Well, you didn't get totally burnt out because you decided to kind of do that as a profession. So let's talk about that transition. You're recruiting for the military. You decide, hey, I think I found a niche here. I must be pretty good at this. Let's do this in the civilian sector. How was that transition from recruiting individuals into the military to trying to recruit talent and military individuals transitioning out themselves into a company?
Well, I tell you what, first part is it's a lot easier to get somebody to have a conversation with you. You don't have to run and tackle them, you know, and force them to have a conversation and take your pamphlet. So
yeah.
It's just a lot easier to get somebody to have a conversation. But more than that, I think
having a Wi-Fi issue.
Branches. I am.
Yeah, I think so.
Brian, you're chopping up a little bit on us. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is this better?
You seem to be all right now. Yeah.
Is it still chopping up? Okay.
Not at this moment.
It was coming and going.
Me, I really. Here, hold on.
You know,
network.
One of the things that I've always wondered, I've always wanted to ask this question, because we had Rob Arndt on here one time, and he would talk about he was a Marine recruiter, and he's in sales now, and he talked about how he went through these aggressive sales trainings and sales cycles and things like that in the Marine Corps to learn how to use these different tactics to grab these people and get them into the military. And if you recall, he told us a story about how he would call the parents of the recruits and say, you know, this is the Air Force recruiter, and you know, calling to talk to your punk ass kid. Yeah. And then he would actually call them the next day, like, hey, this is Rob from the Marines office. Like, and they'd be like, oh, the Air Force recruiter was so mean. And so he'd be sweeping his competition. We can't quite do that in civilian recruiting. As much as I would love to call a candidate and be like, hey, where else are you interviewing? And they're like, I'm interviewing at Bob Smith's, distribution center down the street. Like, listen, Bob Smith's distribution center sucks. Like, you don't want to go work there. Come work here. We'll pay you more. It's 9 to 5 job. You won't be doing night, but
well, you just call him up and say, hey, this is Bill from Bob Smith's recruiting. What are you doing, loser?
We're going to talk to your punk ass kids home.
Yeah.
Well, why are you talking about my kids like that?
Yeah.
But in all seriousness, I think the hunt is the same, or rather maybe what recruiting in the military and recruiting in the civilian world. And I was not a military recruiter. I do military recruitment and veteran recruitment out here in the civilian world. But I would say that probably the most similar thing, and Brian, you can tell me if I'm right here or not, is the disappointment of losing candidates. It's when you work so hard to get, like, you have all these candidates that you have lined up. You're like, this is the one. I'm going to get this person to join the military or join my company. And then that person bails and takes another offer, or they just flat out bail on you and they ghost. Now, and another topic here, we can cover this in a minute, is that recruiters also ghost people. And I hear that a lot, and I've done it to people by accident before. But I would venture to say that if we had to compare the two places, military and civilian recruitment, maybe that is one similarity. I don't know, Brian. What's the?
I tell you what, losing the candidate, I feel like Tommy Boy sitting inside that guy's office talking about losing the sale, and I absolutely feel like when you lose a candidate, you rack your brain. What could I have done differently?
Right.
When I was recruiting for the military, I lost 2 candidates to the Coast Guard. Like, how the heck do I lose 2 people to the Coast Guard? I'm like, was I that bad? I mean, it's the Coast Guard. They don't talk to anybody.
Listen, I've seen Coast Guard has a YouTube channel, and it's like Coast Guard of Fort Lauderdale, and these guys are hanging out at the beach playing.
Trust me, if I had to do it over again, I would join the Coast Guard.
Right.
I mean, I was pulling in on a ship last year into San Juan. I saw the boats lined up, and I was told my wife, I joined the wrong branch. These guys are in San Juan. They're in St. Thomas. I'm like, no, knowing my luck, I would have ended up on the northern peninsula of, daggone Michigan or the Aleutian Islands, and I would have thought the Aleutian Islands sounded tropical and ended up in Alaska. So, knowing my, I would have thought that, but
Aleutian Islands beaches,
that sounds cool. Yeah, I'll take the Aleutian Islands. Right. You get there, I realize, there's no beach here that I'm gonna go hang out on.
I did the same thing for Paris Island. Oh, Paris Island, that sounds great. Paris Island, send me there for 3 months for free.
Please.
Right.
Yeah. Ooh, I bet it's nice and tropical.
Bring my family back here. It was nice and tropical.
Yeah,
it was.
Yeah, it's tropical and it's not fun. It's not fun. Yeah,
oh shoot, that's funny. But yeah, losing the candidate, that's always a hard one. The best part is one thing I learned when I was trying to make the transition is some people would give me some time of day, but the hard part was getting people to understand my background in the military as a recruiter and how that would help in transition into the civilian world. And it was really hard to get somebody to call me back at that point in time in 2016. And in contrast, at the time, I was getting a 7% return on my resume. And so I'm a little bit of a nerd when it comes to like recruiting. Like I track my numbers and how many times I send it out, how many responses I get, interviews, things like that, right? Maybe it's because it's the military in me and being a military recruiter for so long that I felt like the only way to know if I'm being successful was to really track any type of information I could. And in contrast now, I'm getting a 13.1% return after having, some civilian experience for the past 4 years. At that time in 2016, I was interviewing with 2 companies. And now I'm interviewing with 11 right now. And so that's the contrast that you're looking at.
Let's stop here for a second and let's touch on the subject. So you're actively seeking a job. You're actively looking, you're a job seeker now. You found yourself looking for your next opportunity. Let's talk about that. What are you looking for? What's your ideal situation? Where do you want to be?
I really want to be with the company that's gonna that I can stay with for quite a while. So it's not so much looking for advancement or looking for a promotion, stuff like that, as it is looking for a place that's gonna be stable, a place where, with recruiting that I know that I can actually make a difference there. And I think it's more of that intrinsic value that I find in what I'm doing. And so I think the part about recruiting I really love is making that offer, giving that person that next position and hearing the excitement on the other end of the line. And then also hearing the excitement from the hiring manager that I gave them somebody that was awesome. So that's really fun doing that. I want to be in a place where I have a good relationship with the business. Having that business relationship, understanding how what I do affects them at the end of the day and how I can make it better. That's really fun. So right now, out of those different companies, I've got some that are on the top of my list that I'm really enjoying the conversations with right now that I should hear back this week from, which is really awesome. And they do fit into what I'm looking for. Not so much a certain industry as it is like really how am I going to be partnering with them as a business and really what does that look like moving forward.
Yeah. So this is my impression for anybody listening. This is my impression of Brian. Brian and I connected a few years ago as Brian was looking to plug in some resources around military recruitment. And at the time I had already built or run a couple of military programs in a few different big companies. And at that point in time, I was working as an advisor in a third party recruiting company. And Brian came out and was intellectually curious. Hey, what are you using? What works? What doesn't? What have you done? What have you not done? That to me, especially when you're building a program, that to me, I love it when other recruiters, other professionals knock on my door and say, what are you doing right? What are you doing wrong? What's worked? What hasn't? Because for those of us who have been doing this, like I tell people this all the time, in a military recruitment program in a company, an effective program, 10 years ago, we were buying print ads. We were buying billboards and newspaper ads. Like that's, and going to job fairs, and that's all we could do. The game has shifted. It's a lot digital now. You can digitally geofence. I say this word a lot, geofence, and I have to explain it to people. I can geofence advertisements onto military bases. I can make it so that when you open your social media on Fort Hood, you're seeing my company and you're seeing my job opportunities, and it's targeted directly at you. And when you leave Fort Hood and drive into Austin, you're no longer getting that advertisement. So there's this benchmarking that we have to do as recruiters, especially if you have military recruitment programs as well. There's this benchmarking that we have to do. But my impression of you, Brian, was that you were curious. You're out there knocking on doors, trying to figure out, trying to maybe even learn from other people's mistakes, which is valuable, because I always say fail cheap, fail fast. If you're in your company, you're spending money on programs and you're trying to get something moving, it is better to go in there and screw up really early and say, I only spent $2,000 on this, versus getting a year into a program and being, oh, we're doing it wrong. So Brian, you and I have stayed in touch all that time, and then of course we kept bumping into each other. I think we bumped into each other at a couple of different events, a couple of different job fairs. But
I think the last time was Fort Hood we ran into each other.
Well, yeah, it probably was. That's right. So Fort Hood, I mentioned Fort Hood. But again, this is more of a testament to anybody who listens, because as we finish this up and wrap this call up in 15 minutes, I'm going to put this thing, I'm going to put this back out to LinkedIn and talk about it a little bit. I'd say Brian's an asset to the team. You've got somebody here who's going to go out and track down the resources and figure out what comes next, and figure out what you need to be doing and what you don't need to be doing. And of course, I tell people that if you're going to hire a recruiter or a salesperson, people who have recruitment experience from the military are the most ruthless recruiters or salespeople in the world. Because,
and you mean that in a good way?
I mean that in a good way. Yeah. Ruthless. I mean, that's what you want, though, as a recruiter.
I got a great story for ruthlessness.
You want ruthless people. You want people that don't take no for an answer. So, we see that. I know that the training you got to go through and the experience, like in the military, you have a mission to meet. You have people that you have to plug into the service. And that means that if they're not coming to your office, you got to go find them.
Oh, yeah.
And so, it's not like the days anymore where, like, the recruiter that got me, they were standing, or the reason why I joined the Marine Corps, it wasn't the recruiter that I actually ended up signing up with, but these guys were in the hallway at high school. And I was like, I want to wear that uniform. So I did some more digging. But then I did recruiter's assistance later on, and I was walking around the shopping mall trying to shake hands with people. And I didn't have a quota, but that's what we did every day. We went out and tried to grab people. We tried to find people. So the game has changed a little bit, but you want somebody, companies want somebody like Brian, or any of us who have done this for a while. You are understanding the mission. You mentioned statistics and metrics before, and tracking your numbers and things like that. That's another big piece that I think a lot of recruiters are starting to plug into, but don't quite yet. That you can charge your effectiveness. You can look at what works and what doesn't by simply running the numbers. And if you're not doing that, you can't be an effective recruiting leader. Sorry, I'll get off my soapbox here.
No, but you're right though. A lot of recruiters they understand the art of recruiting, but not the science behind recruiting. And there's both sides. And you can't be all on one side or the other. You have to understand they both go together. And being ruthless, oh, dude, I was so ruthless as a recruiter for the last company. We had truck drivers we had to hire sometimes for some of our roles. I seriously, if I was traveling and if I was out at, say, Fort Hood, I would drive to Austin and go to Round Rock or some other location of our competitor. And before I showed up to the event where we would meet each other, I'd be out in a branch location for a competitor at 5 a.m. stalking the branch and following their drivers as they went out. They stop off at a job site and give them my business card, say, hey, give me a call. We'll meet up tonight. I'll buy dinner. Bring your family. Let's talk about an opportunity with our company. That's how ruthless I was. And my counterpart, who I brought over as a recruiter for us, he was a military recruiter as well. He did the same thing, and it worked for us. That's why we were so effective with recruiting drivers at the time whenever everybody else was having a hard time. We would seriously do that and just talk to people at truck stops if we saw a competitor's vehicle or somebody similar industry, or we'd follow them out from the competitor's location. That's how I really found myself being more of an asset too as I traveled, is picking up these other areas where I knew we had opportunities and doing that too on top of being at the event. And as far as it goes with military recruitment, we had to, man. We actually rented a kiosk at a mall. And the purpose of renting that kiosk is put ourselves during the summertime in front of all those high school, college, fire service candidates. And by doing that, it got us to be able to kick out all the other services. So the security guards would walk the other services out of the building in uniform if they saw them actively talking to people. Because we paid to be there. They didn't. And it made all the other services so mad. They showed up at our office one day to talk to our NCOIC about letting them in. And we told them, hey, if you guys want in there, you can buy a booth to buy a kiosk as well.
I feel like somebody else told us a similar story. Somebody else we talked to on here said the same thing, different branch. Maybe it was Rob. I forget, but
was he one getting kicked out? Because if so, that was probably because of me.
Yeah.
I would not have thought of that, but now that you've brought that up, that's a fantastic way to do it. I mean, you're paying for that real estate.
We are. Why were they able to come in for free, right? And so now we essentially took one of the biggest areas where we can meet our target market and kick all of our competition out of it and made it to where we're the only ones people can walk up to and talk.
Yeah.
And,
awesome.
And for young teenagers, the mall at least used to be, prime real estate. That's where people would kind of just go and hang out. Yeah.
Now, were there videos
in 2009?
Were there videos playing the whole time of I love the every military branches. Now, I think the Army's done it differently and good for them, but all the military branches for the longest time had these commercials that were it's all combat all the time. Everybody's going to be a badass.
The hype videos.
You're all
it was a hype video we had playing. Yeah.
Right.
We totally had a hype video playing.
When I went in, the Marines were slaying lava dragons.
Yep.
So, I was like, for sure, I'm going to get this sword, which I have in my office somewhere. But I have not yet slayed a lava dragon. But
so it was a commercial with the sword and the uniform that got you slaying the dragon.
Yes.
Got it, man.
It was. But also, my brother and my dad were both in the Navy, and I was like, watch this, guys. They had the utmost respect for the Marine Corps. So I was like, I'm going to go do this. But I remember the Army had a commercial one time, and it was the drill instructor yelling at some of the different recruits, and they're all like, I want to go fight wars. I want to go do this. I want to go do that. And they finally get to this one guy, and they're like, why'd you join the Army? He's like, I want to be a graphic designer. And it was like, oh, because, and this is, for those of us who have run military programs and companies, the military has all the same jobs that we have out here. I mean, it's veterinarians, doctors, nurses, graphic designers, marketing people, HR, IT. I mean, you name it. The military is like a gigantic corporation that wears a uniform. And so that was it was a genius move on the Army's part, because I still talk to people today when they're like, my son wants to join the military, but I'm afraid that it might be dangerous. I'm like, listen, 13% of the military are actually combat arms. Mm-hmm. The vast majority of military are not combat arms. They're never going to see combat. The vast majority of anybody in the military would never see combat, even during a war. Mm-hmm. And so you have all these other skill sets. And that's, back to the argument for the civilian sector has to understand that too, that these are not all people with a machine gun. This is not the movie Platoon. That's not what we are. Now, Tim and I were, that's what we just blew things up. I always tell, that's how I wrote my resume. I blew things up with shotguns.
Hire me now.
Right. What job can I do in your company to blow things up? Yeah. But there was, that was the job. The job was that, but 95% of the time we weren't doing that. We were leading Marines. We were training. We were doing planning. We were doing et cetera, et cetera. So there are so many of these other facets there. And that I think is what the new recruiting has to do for the military to keep those numbers up, is to remind people that it's not all machine guns and, and bombs and combat. It's mostly not that. And if you want a job in, let's say, commercial real estate, you could certainly go manage properties in the Navy or the Air Force too, in a quartermaster job or something along those lines. So, So I love hearing the stories about the different tactics the recruiters would play in the military, because I've always been under the impression that it was cutthroat.
Oh yeah, and even against your own counterparts sometimes at that. So if there's another recruiter you didn't like, you would totally undercut that guy.
Right.
So
would you call his parents and be like, "This is other recruiter. This is Bob."
I will say, I wish I thought of that. I wish I did, but no, I didn't. So I got to give that guy credit and props on that one. I mean, that is awesome. What I did do is there was a point in time when the National Guard enlisted people underneath a different criteria than the active duty Army did. And so the National Guard was a back door for the active duty Army to get people in. And so I developed a relationship with the active duty component. And when they have somebody that was prior service that came in trying to get back in, we would put them into the National Guard and then conditional release them after 6 months back over to active duty. So we worked out a deal where I was having the active duty swearing in my prior service enlistments for me in the active duty office as a National Guard recruiter, and then finishing the paperwork up in my office. Because the National Guard and the active duty Army and Army Reserves, we don't have a good relationship typically. But this worked out beautifully to where I was making mission. I was sending people after 6 months back over to them with conditional release, and I'd help them get the conditional release from the National Guard. We had something awesome going for a couple of years. And so for me, it was a moneymaker all day long. They were happy with it because then they still got people in. They just knew it would be 6 months down the road. And so they just had that continual stream coming for me. And that was a great relationship. And then the other great one was, hey guys, I hate to say it, but we got more Marines in the National Guard than the Marine Corps has in the Marines right now.
Oh, I know.
And
I know.
When they got rid of the tow unit in my city, that was nothing but a honey hole for me, because those guys either had to drive to Chicago or Oklahoma City then to go to drill, and I put those guys in by the droves. I put one in, and he brought his buddy, and then they brought other buddies, and that year I made money off of that.
I know
that was awesome.
Went into the Guard afterwards, and we always laughed and made fun of them, like, how could you? And they're like, oh man, this is awesome. We got new stuff. We got good gear.
Yeah.
We're not constantly yelling at each other.
We're not using Vietnam era stuff anymore.
Right.
But I think culturally it was, the Marine Corps is just, I always explained it as being exceptionally aggressive and violent. Like, that's the culture of the Marine Corps.
You're supposed to be.
I loved being aggressive, but I couldn't do it 100% of the time. And it's one of the reasons why I was like, I'm not going to stay here for the rest of my life. I loved it, but it was like, I'm going to get in and get out,
Right.
But some of these guys that would transition out of active duty Marines and then go into the Guard, of course we'd make fun of them, but then they would be like, dude, I've got it made here. Like, I am in control of, like, they'd be like an NCO, and they're like, I'm bossing around the captain,
Yeah, dude. You have no idea. Like, it's crazy sometimes. I've trained a lot of lieutenants in my time, a lot. And the crazy thing is, as an E7, it's awesome. You get a chance to train lieutenants. You partner with a lot of captains and 03s and 04s. Sometimes 05s as well. So I was working doing a warfighter with the 101st at one point, and I was at the division headquarters there. We got 1-stars walking around debriefing and full board colonels as an E7. And I needed to get a report out. And the battle captain that night, the 03, just kept ignoring me all night long. Would not respond to me, told me he was too busy. So the next morning I get a phone call from the lieutenant colonel saying, hey, how come my report's all jacked up this morning? We briefed the same information we briefed yesterday to the 3-star. I said, hey, I was like, are you staying in the COIC right now? He said, yes. I said, if you go up to your battle captain and tell him to send me the information I need that he's ignored me all night for, I'll fix it for you. Did I throw that 03 under the bus? Heck, yes, I did. But at the same time, I taught him a valuable lesson. So I sent over to the lieutenant colonel all the emails and traffic I had from that night before, where I never got a response or telling me to wait because he was too busy. And in 10 minutes, I had all the information I needed coming through in my email. I was able to update this, the PowerPoint for the lieutenant colonel. So just things like that was kind of fun too, because then it built a lot of respect from the lieutenant colonel's point of view with me, who's still in the State National Guard where I'm at right now. Right. And stops and talks to me whenever I run into him on a hallway now. So it's just kind of interesting, the different elements you get to engage with and the respect and rapport you build with people over time. And 03, he realized he was wrong, and him and I are good still, but it was just kind of a fun little lesson to teach him at the same time. So
yeah. To go back to something you were talking about earlier with buying the kiosk in the mall, I just envision, like the Navy setting up like hey, we're selling cookies right outside the doors of the mall here. We can't go in, but you guys can stop, get a cookie. We'll talk to you. Yeah. And as a Marine Corps recruiter, I'd have just walked up and slapped the cookie out of their hand. What are you doing? Can't eat those.
It's almost like having a drug dealer outside of the door. Like they don't want anybody to know that they're there. Yeah. But like they're wearing a trench coat.
By the way, when you go inside, don't tell the Army we're here. You can't.
They started wearing civilian clothes coming in, and they would have to have like they started off with like polos that said like Marine Corps on them or Army.
Yeah.
But then they were getting kicked out because security guards were picking up on it. Yeah. So they actually started coming in civilian clothes without any type of emblems on them and just talking to people. So they had to find other ways around it.
They're like standing in the back of a Foot Locker behind like a display, like, hey, come here. I got money.
Yeah.
Right?
Hey, I see you're buying running shoes. You like to run? You want a good boot camp and run?
I can promise you a life of adventure.
We'll pay you to run. You'll get paid when you go running.
We'll pay you to run. We'll pay you to run at least 3 to 4 times a week, multiple miles. We'll give you shoes.
Right.
Yeah.
Shoes and boots.
Yeah, shoes, boots, uniforms.
I mean, you don't have to, and we'll give you free food too.
Yeah,
yeah.
Have you seen the Lava Dragon commercial? It's pretty sweet.
Right.
You may earn a sword one day.
Yeah.
That's the truth.
It's
and we'll give you a really cool uniform.
Yep. There you go. Well, Brian, thank you very much for joining us. Just wanted to give you the opportunity. Anybody that's seen this or hears this and is potentially looking for a talent acquisition individual, Brian is definitely your guy. And I love the fact that before we started recording, you were saying that, when you started doing the military transition talent acquisition, you reached out to guys like Matt. You reached out to somebody at Disney, you said, and there was a third name there that I don't remember, but so that's, and even Matt said it. That's something that most people aren't willing to do. They'd rather go out and, make the mistakes on their own versus it's just a smarter plan to, hey, you've been doing this. Mm-hmm. Let me bend your ear a little bit and see what you've done that's worked and see what you haven't done, so you can kind of stay away from some of those pitfalls.
Right.
So that's a great deal. I think
that's something we learned in the military to do. I mean, think about the number of times that somebody's like, "Hey, go do me a memo on X, Y, and Z," and you turn your right. Hey, do you have an example of that memo that he's talking about? And then we go build one off of it, and we make it our own. And I think it's something we really learn in the military is, hey, let's go and find out some of the best practices, learn from somebody else who's already done it, and then let's see if we can improve upon it.
That's the reason we don't line up in major formations and just walk towards each other anymore either.
Right. Somebody at one point was like, hey, why don't we try to hide?
Yeah. Like, we're standing in the middle of this field. It seems like they might be able to shoot us pretty easily. Like, let's get behind a tree or something.
Right.
I think Ethan Allen had a great plan to that. That's why he was doing all his guerrilla warfare whenever he did it back in the Revolutionary War. And that's why the British found it so, dishonorable at the time. And it was ridiculous and not gentlemanlike. So,
well,
but at the same time, it's finding a new way to do it smartly.
Yeah. When we talk about networking, which is the number one most effective way to plug into your next opportunities, in my opinion, networking has done just wonders for me. I no longer, in my career and over the years, I've never just dropped an application in and waited for something to happen. I've made connections with people, and to get better at my own job, I make connections with people. I have connections with other organizations. I've had 2 or 3 conversations this week alone already, and it's only Wednesday, with other Fortune 500s about their respective programs and what they're doing, because I wanted to hear from these different organizations. But that's the way to do it. It is building a network, not by asking people just for a connection. It's coming in and saying, hey, what are you doing and how can I learn from you? People love to talk about themselves.
Yep.
And I don't say that in a bad way. I mean, it could be bad. But in the case of trying to get on somebody's radar or trying to bend somebody's ear, to quote Tim, it is asking them to share what they've done right. And people love to brag about their successes, and they like to talk about themselves. Mm-hmm. And frankly, when we talk about recruiting programs, but even more specifically, military recruiting programs or veteran recruiting programs, my number one mission in my job is to plug the best talent into the company with whom I work, or for whom I work, the company that's paying me to do that program. I'm gonna produce the best results in the entire world. But secondarily, my secondary function there is, my secondary priority there is to make sure that I'm also helping that transitioning service member get from point A to point B. And I can't do that as one company. I have to have other companies and other professionals on board with me doing that type of work. So it behooves me to connect with the Amazons and the Johnson and Johnsons and the Cintas's and you name it, all the companies that we see out there that have military programs. It behooves me to connect with them because I have to be able to share talent in some cases. Or, hey, candidate ABC, I don't have a job for you. We don't do what you've done in the military. Why don't you go take a look at Amazon down the street, because they do that type of work. So without those connections, that's we're all out here kind of acting as individual contributors, and we don't want to be that, especially as a veteran network. We don't want to be that. So the whole purpose of this podcast is to share those best practices and share stories of that stuff. If we're doing it as soloists, we're failing. We're not a very good fraternity of men and women. So,
no, I think veterans do a really good job about being able to network with one another. We do a great job about putting information out, and I think that's probably been one of the best things. Like, since I posted out that, hey, I was looking for a new opportunity, the amount of just people on LinkedIn that I've had reach out to me has been awesome. It's been amazing. It's been a huge help in my search. It's why I think as successful as I am right now in my job search. And so that, I think, is really huge. And then just going out there and not being scared of hearing no. I mean, just like whenever I reached out to you, Matt, a few years ago, what's worse you would have said to me? No, I ain't got time.
I'm busy.
Somebody else would have.
Have your people call my people. I am not that. These days, I find myself in my inbox apologizing to people. I'm so sorry for the delay, but you are one of 4,000 people that have sent me a message this week. And that's a good problem to have. It's just a sign of the times right now with COVID and everything. A lot of people's worlds have been shaken up, and we're trying to get to everybody we can. But yeah, you're right. What's the worst I could have said? No, Brian, sorry, I'm busy. That would have been foolish of me, because I'll entertain the conversation, and of course here we are a couple years later still talking.
Yeah, and that's just building relationships and having those networks built. And obviously I've sent people, like you just mentioned, over to other companies because either we didn't have what they needed, or I noticed an opportunity somewhere else. And it's just like whenever we get into career events and things, I would talk to other people at the different booths, and I might be talking to somebody and they tell me what they're looking for. Hey, I don't have that, but if you go 3 booths down, this other company's got exactly what you're looking for. You need to go talk to them.
Yep, 100%.
And I've actually had some people in my company that were there with me at different events whenever I've done that. And like,
what are you doing?
Hey, you just sent them to another company. I'm like, yeah, we didn't have what they needed.
Right.
That place did.
Why did you send that veterinarian to that other company? It's like, because we don't hire veterinarians.
Right.
Like,
I'm not trying to bring them in to do something else that I want to do. So
that's PetSmart down there, and they have veterinarians.
We're Omaha Steaks. We deal with cutting up meats. They save the animal.
Why'd you send that pilot down there? Because we're not Delta, and that's Delta.
Yeah. We don't have fixed wings anymore. So
right.
Well, Brian, it sounds like you're getting very successful early returns in your job search. I hope you find something soon, and it's going to allow you to take this network you've built and take your talents, and you find yourself just as busy as Mr. Matt Disher here very shortly, getting people to the right spots internally and sharing across your network as well with potential other landing spots for these people. So thank you very much for joining us today, Brian. It was a pleasure to meet you, pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you guys so much.
Matt, before we go, you got anything you wanted to share?
No, I'm good. I look forward to next week. I'll be in the new office, and we'll have a new background. And I like to think that's where I'm going to kick it into high gear. But I'm just kidding. It's the same old thing. But I think along the lines of our conversation, keep networking, and of course, we are always looking to have great conversations with other guests on the show here as we continue to move down this road. So if you have an interesting story, want to come join us, drop into my inbox, and I'll send you a note and apologize for the delay. And then we will talk.
Matt, in the new office, I expect a monocle and possibly a top hat next week. So
right. Yeah. I'll wear a full tuxedo 100% of the time. And with a pipe. I'll have a pipe.
A pipe, glass of bourbon.
Right. Stirring it, swirling it as we talk. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
But no, I look forward to it. Thanks, Brian. Thanks so much for your service, of course, and for your friendship, your camaraderie here, and thanks for staying in touch with us. And I wish you the best of luck in your next steps. I think you're an asset wherever you go, and I mean that sincerely. So I hope that anybody listens to this and somebody might recognize an opportunity. It sounds like you've got some things in the cooker though, so that's good.
Yeah, I do. But hey, I'm also open to the conversation right now, so I won't ever turn down the conversation at this point.
Yeah,
good.
Thank you guys
Brian,
so much. I really
definitely let us
appreciate
know
it.
how it goes.
I will.
Let us know how it goes. So with that, we're going to wrap up today. You can find us on all the major social media platforms. You can check us out there. You can like, subscribe, give us the thumbs up, give us a heart, smiley face, all those fun little things. You can also find us on all your major podcast platforms. Again, subscribe, leave us a rating and review. Let us know what you like, what you don't. Tell me I need to grow the beard back out. I don't know. Whatever it is. That way we can get better for you guys. Appreciate it. And until next week, we'll be right back here